To run a sub-4 marathon, I need to hold a 9-minute 9-second per mile for 26.2 miles. So why am I training at 12-minute miles, slower than I've ever run in my life? Here's why. This slow crawl is actually the fastest way to sub-4. For months I trained the only way I knew how. Push every run, finish destroyed, and then repeat. My easy runs weren't easy. Heart rate at 155 to 160 for an hour, sometimes more. I thought that's what training was supposed to feel like. If you're not hurting, you're not improving, right? Wrong. A year of that, a year of grinding myself into the ground, and my parkrun times, they hadn't moved. Not a single second. I was working harder than ever and getting absolutely nowhere. Then one evening at the run club, I stood there with a mate, someone who's run more marathons than I've had hot dinners, and I just unloaded. I don't get it. I'm out there 4, 5 times a week, pushing every session. I've got nothing to show for it. I remember exactly how that felt. That deep, bold level of frustration. The kind where you start to wonder if you're just not built for it. Like maybe sub-4 isn't for people like me. Maybe it's for naturally thin, the lifelong athletes, the people who didn't spend 2 decades on the sofa. He looked at me and said 4 words: train your aerobic system. I said, what does that even mean? I run. That is aerobic. And he said, not the way that you're doing it. You're running your easy runs at marathon effort. You're training your ego, not your engine. That landed because he was right. I'm documenting every step of this sub-4 build. The training shifts, the setbacks, the moments. It clicks. If you're a runner over 40 chasing something that scares you, hit subscribe. This is the honest version, no highlight reel. I committed to zone 2 training. Keep my heart rate under 140. Don't look at the pace, just run to effort. I lasted about 90 seconds before I looked at my watch. 12:30 per mile. 12:30? I was being overtaken by a woman pushing a shopping trolley. I'm not joking. One of those tartan granny trolleys, and she was moving faster than me. I wanted to quit, not the run, the whole thing, because running at 12:30 mile doesn't feel like training. It feels like giving up. Every instant I had was screaming at me to open up, pick up the pace, show the world, or at least the woman with the trolley, that I was actually a runner. But I didn't. I stayed slow, finished the run, feeling fine, not destroyed, not crawling, just fine, which after a year of finishing every run in bits was weirdly unsettling. Here's what was actually happening, and this is the bit nobody told me. When you run at high effort all the time, which is what I'd done for a year, you're training your anaerobic system, the one that burns sugar, produces lactate, and makes your leg feel like lead after about an hour. Powerful but limited. Zone 2 trains a completely different system, your aerobic system, the one that burns fat, clears lactate, and can keep you going for hours. It's the foundation, and I'd spent a year building a house with no foundation. The reason my parkrun times hadn't moved, I was a one-speed runner, hard effort, that's it. No aerobic base underneath. Zone 2 was building that base for the first time. Think of it like this. You can't put a Ferrari engine in a car with no chassis. Zone 2 is the chassis. Speed work comes later. But without the chassis, you're just burning fuel in an empty frame. Here's what was actually happening, and this is the bit nobody told me. When you run at high effort all the time, which is what I'd done for a year, you're training your anaerobic system, the one that burns sugar, produces lactate, and makes your leg feel like lead after about an hour. Powerful but limited. Zone 2 trains a completely different system, your aerobic system, the one that burns fat, clears lactate, and can keep you going for hours. It's the foundation, and I'd spent a year building a house with no foundation. The reason my parkrun times hadn't moved, I was a one speed runner, hard effort, that's it. No aerobic base underneath. Zone 2 was building that base for the first time. Think of it like this. You, you can't put a Ferrari engine in a car with no chassis. Zone 2 is the chassis. Speed work comes later. But without the chassis, you're just burning fuel in an empty frame. 10 weeks after that run club conversation, 10 weeks of 12-minute miles and bruised ego, I lined up at parkrun. Hadn't done a single speed session, not one. No intervals, no tempo runs, just slow, steady zone 2 miles. I ran a 37-second PB. No sprint finish, no lung burning kick. I just ran faster. At the same time, same effort, because the engine was finally there. I nearly laughed when I crossed the line. A year of grinding. Nothing 10 weeks of running slower than I've ever run, and I finally got faster. This isn't just training tip. For me, 20 years obese, couldn't run a city block, now chasing a sub-4 at 53. This was a complete mindset shift. I'd always believed progress comes from suffering, pushing, grinding. That's how I lost the weight. That's how I ran my first marathon. And it worked until it didn't. What Zone 2 taught me is sometimes the hardest thing isn't pushing harder, it's trusting the process. When it looks like you're going nowhere, staying slow, when every instinct screams faster, believing that the 12-minute mile today is building the 9-minute mile for tomorrow. I've stopped being embarrassed by my pace because now I know what the numbers actually mean. Sub-4 is still a long way off. The 2 marathons I've planned, Nice in November and Berlin next year. So I have got months of slow miles ahead, and I'll be documenting every one of them. If you're a runner who's been grinding and not seeing results, pushing every run and wondering why you're not getting faster, maybe try slowing down. It sounds backwards, it feels backwards, but sometimes the fastest way forward is the slowest pace you've ever run. What's the one thing about your training that feels wrong, but you suspect might actually be right? Drop it in the comments. I read every single one. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.